Okay, this is going to be a quick video about how to double check and actually double click on your smart objects in your layer panel to open them up and actually assess the size or perhaps modify or revise the size. So in this sample, I'm going to double click on the Laughing Musician smart object. Now when you look at your layer panel, you look at your layers, we have a mask on the Laughing Musician, and then the smart object itself is on the left-hand side. It has the little smart object icon, and we just simply double click on it. And when we double click on it, it opens a window of just that image. That is the smart object itself. Now, if we went to Window, to Arrange, to Tile All Vertically, you can see that our full composite collage is over on the left, and on the right is the smart object, which is called, it might change whether it says Layer O or Musician, but it will always be a .psb. So PSB, B for boy. That tells us that that's the smart object. We can now look and see what qualities or dimensions this smart object has, and we're going to go to Option Command I or Alt Control I to check it, to bring up the image size window. And we can see that this image has been, it has been corrected to 300 resolution, but they didn't, whoever the student is, did not pay attention to the actual dimensions. So at this point, because the assignment is calling for our musician to be between 7 and 9 inches tall, we should do something about this. So what I want you to get in the habit of looking at is also kind of assessing the image. So I'm going to actually say okay, and I'm going to crop some of this white area of the background so we get a little tighter into his size so he will be even more accurate. And to crop it just without any dimension involved, just to crop what I call almost a freeform crop, you would go to C for the crop tool. If you don't see, what you want to do is you want to be in ratio. And if there's any numbers in here or any kind of data, you want to reset it by clicking the little an arrow that's bent. And what we do is we now see, because we're in the crop tool, that there is a grid overlaid the image in 3 parts, which is for design. And you can just pull from the side closer, just actually visualize it. I'm just bringing it in a little bit because I know I'm going to mask out that background, so let me have a little bit less to even mask, and it'll make our image size not take up as much memory. So now that we're tight on that one, I'm going to hit the return key, or if that's not working, you can click the check mark. Both of those things should work really well. And now we're going to go to Control-Alt-I to check again the image size and see where we're at. Well, he's still a little bit too tall, but so now all we're going to do is, if resample was off, you're going to click it back on. You're going to change the height, just the height, to 9 inches. You're also going to make sure that before you do that proportion link here on the left-hand side of width and height is engaged. It should not look like that. That means it's not on. You want it to look like it has a bracket on it. And I'm going to do that again and change it to 9. And it will proportionally keep the same aspect ratio, and the width is proportionally reduced with the height. So I'm now going to say okay. He's gotten smaller, and now I'm going to save the smart object. So this is an important step. You can't just have it kind of floating around. You actually have to close your smart object, and you can either do that by going to Control or Command W, or you can click the little X in the window on the top of the window. And when you do close it, it's going to ask you, do you want to save the changes that you just made? If you want to, which we do in this case definitely, we're going to say save. And what that does is it will close the window, and then there is our guy. Oh, geesh, doesn't look so good, does it? Well, this is the only thing with your assignment that, yes, you had a mask on there, but it was masked to an image that was the wrong size. So there's no way around it. We're just going to go on our mask, on our layer panel, go on that black and white section, which is the mask. I'm going to trash that by clicking on the trash can at the bottom of the layers panel. And now we have our musician, and really this one was so simple. It's got a nice white background. We can go to whatever, obviously whatever selection tool you want. I'm going to try it with the magic wand, and I am going to make sure that contiguous is checked on because I don't want to get his white shirt. And I'm just going to hold my shift key for some of those parts that aren't selected until I get a kind of a good selection in there. And then what have I done? I have actually selected, I'm going to zoom in, I have selected the white background, not our subject. So I am now going to go up here to select, inverse. That changes. Now he is selected, and at this point now, bringing my layer panel, I'm going to the bottom, I'm clicking the mask button, and he is now masked. Now, sometimes this happens where you can see there's kind of like there's a white, little tiny white line around him. That happens just because of the nature of your selection. So remember, all you have to do is go back onto your mask, and with a decent brush, I had a kind of a crazy brush there, I'm going to go to a typical brush. I'm going to make sure the hardness is on. I'm going to make sure that the brush isn't too big, and I'm simply going to paint on the mask with black to get rid of that kind of pinstripe that existed there. And if there was any other parts of him, of that mask, you guys all know how to edit it. Like right in there, I'm just going to make, with the bracket key, I'm making my brush smaller, and I'm going to go in and just really carefully make sure that his shoe looks a little bit better. And there we go. And I think that will do it. Of course, I can always come back and assess my mask again. But what we also haven't seen is that because this had been scaled down to match what they thought was the layout, right now, if we went to the transform tool on our musician, he probably is about, he's not tall enough. Now, I don't have the model of this assignment back, but if you drag the corner, just the corners, in Photoshop, you don't have to hold the shift key anymore. You can, as you drag, you can see the little measurements there. And I'm going to make him about 8 in there. It doesn't really matter. The range said between 7 and 9 for the assignment. Oh, maybe I'll make him even a little bit bigger because I want to match that layout. So I think he was about 9. I'm doing this blindly, of course. And then I'm going to hit the return key to commit to my transformation. And hopefully that's kind of close to where he was before. And that's one way of fixing your smart object that might be incorrect. So I'm going to continue with one other thing. Now, I'm not sure whether these ones are correct or not. Everything has been masked already, so if they're incorrect, we're going to see what happens. So I'm going to go to this big white flower, and it looks like it's about, I'm looking at my rulers here, and it looks like it's about 6 inches tall, or 7 inches. So I'm going to double click again on that smart object. So now you get it. It's brought it up in its own PSB. I'm going to now go to Option Command I to check the size, and this one has not been sized at all. So I'm going to unclick the resample. I'm going to change the resolution to 300, and well, let's see what happens. So it immediately made it 5 inches high. That might be too small for our layout, but let's see what happens. I'm going to just save it. Oh, and actually, maybe I will crop it also before I do that to get it a little bit tighter into the flower. You should always do that. If you know you're taking that background away by masking it, crop in nice and tight to the image. say return, and then close your PSB. Yes, I want to save it. We know the mask is going to go probably kind of crazy. And in this case, it is, that's strange. The mask is not changing with it. So I'm going to double click my smart object again. Interesting. I'm closing it, and the mask seems to not be, it actually hasn't been masked. Something is going a little haywire here. So I'm just going to turn that mask off. I'm going to delete it. And let me do that again so you can see. You can right-click on the mask itself. You can either drag it to the trash, or you can right-click and say delete layer mask. So our smart object looks like it's only about, if this is 0, it's only about 3.5 inches tall, so I can make it a little bit bigger. Now I don't want to make it bigger than, sorry, I just moved on that one. You don't want to make it bigger than the actual size of the smart object. So I know I'm going to stop enlarging it when it gets to 5 inches, because we're not allowed to upscale beyond the smart object size. So I'm going to go to that size, I'm going to click return, and I am going to mask it. Now, to mask it, you guys probably understand this now, it's often a really good idea to turn the layers off that might be interfering with your mask. I'm going to use the quick selection tool and hope that I can do this really quickly. And I can see that I'm going to use the option key here to pull that mask back in. That's good enough for me right now. I'm going to click on the mask button. And right now I have changed the size so at least it's the correct resolution. If this is not working for our assignment and you really want this flower to be bigger, at this point you would either keep it this small, or you would actually just throw the whole thing out and start from scratch with the provided files. So that's kind of what we're doing here. I hope that helps. Understand that just every single smart object can be double-clicked and opened and checked. And obviously I'm going to go through this whole file and do the whole thing and then resave the file again. So I hope that helps. And